So one of the questions that he often asks me is, why is it we do love superheroes a lot? Well, one thing that can be is they have superpowers. Well, if that is the case, why don't we love supervillains as well? Obviously, Joker is an exception, but still, we don't usually love supervillains. Now, the answer to this question is a very simple thing, which is they use their powers for good cause. Well, and that brings us to the quote that I just told from yesterday, which is programming can give us superpowers. And that brings us to this. We all are here potential superheroes. We all have the potential to do something that can make a positive impact on this world. Now, you might ask is, why does it even matter? Like, why do we even want to do something good for it? But I would say that's exactly the same thing that separates us from being evil or from being bad. So why not try to use our powers as programmers in order to make something that is good, that can bring a positive change to the world? So without further ado, let's get started. Now, before getting started, something about me. I am a recent graduate from IIT Kharagpur with majors in mathematics and computing. And I'm currently working as a software engineer. And as you can see in my research works, mostly these are works that are related to interdisciplinary applications of computer science. Like, I love mixing computer science with other domains, be it medical science, be it related to social computing, or be it related to music generation as well. So I just love all of them. So now the agenda of the meeting is trying to look at the world from a bigger perspective. Exactly how? Trying to look beyond LLMs, beyond RAG, and beyond all those things which you are hearing since yesterday, and trying to look from a slightly bigger perspective, trying to think how we can use all that knowledge, all those Python tools, in order to make us impact to the world. Now, when we talk about impact, it could be in any domain you can think of. It could be in education, it could be in privacy, it could be in environment, related to environment. Even creating a small website for an NGO counts as something that you can bring out social change. Here, we will try to focus on two of the things among these. First one is healthcare, and second one is how we can use Python to fight online fake news and hate speech. So, but one question that obviously might come into the mind is, why exactly Python? And that brings us to, so yeah, it's obvious, like we have been through so many of the talks so far, we already know why Python. Well, still, if in case somebody still have that question, then here's the answer. It's because of its simplicity, because of its versatility, and more importantly, it's about its community and its libraries. How Python supports the entire ecosystem of AI and the models that we can generate around, that's exactly what makes the impact. Be it the libraries like the library that you can see, OpenCV, Hugging Face Transformers, Scikit-Image, and the obvious ones like Numpy and Pandas, and also the community forums. It's entirely an ecosystem. It's a complete system which can allow you to develop anything that you want. That's obviously some fact that I just throw in, that Python is one of the most used language. And in fact, in data science, according to some surveys by Kaggle, it is among like 80% of the people who works in data science use some or the other form of Python. Now, without further ado, let's start with the main topic, that is healthcare and medical research. Now, you might have come across all these kind of news, like about how MedGemini is creating waves in the medical world, and then how AI is being used in diagnostic world. And then there are also about using AI for better medical health care, better mental health, and how it can be used in inclusivity. Interestingly, if we try to look at the current trends, it is quite apparent that in the near future, AI is going to be used in almost most of the hospitals that we are going to see today. And basically, all this development, we can try to summarize into three categories. First one is accessibility. That is, how we can make the whole healthcare and medical infrastructure more accessible to the people who are remote, for those who might not have that much of access to the to the more supervised people. And second one is cost effectiveness. How we can use AI and Python in order to reduce the overall cost of this whole process. And third one, we have efficiency. How we can more accurately predict that, okay, this is the disease that the person has on the basis of, let's say, their X-ray image or some other kind of image. That is exactly what the whole AI is currently working on. Now, what exactly powers this if we try to answer this question? Well, the obvious answer that comes is that Python is one of the main contenders for it. Because when we talk about AI, we obviously have to talk about Python because of numerous reasons. Well, classical ones is Numpy, Pandas for being ability to process large amount of data, as well as about these libraries like OpenCV, PyTorch, TensorFlow, which allow us to develop and deploy more and more advanced models related to diagnosis and related to supporting the medical healthcare. And also, not just that, there are some of the specific libraries which you might also want to look into, as like PyHealth, BioPython, and NLearn. These are all some of the libraries which are particularly dedicated to Python for medical healthcare. Now, it's better to understand how exactly we can apply into the real world through an example. So here's a quick example, very small example for it, how we can use it in medical history summarization. Now, it's a kind of an application which is particularly useful, which can help to reduce the amount of time that a doctor spends in basically trying to analyze the whole medical history of a patient. How we can use it? We can try to just use just simple lines through using the transformers. We just have to import the pipeline, and then use the summarizer, and then voila, we are done. Now, this is just a simple example. In reality, we might want it to be more inclusive. We want to have models which are much more intricate or involve more understanding of how the medical history works, or how it can be summarized in a way that is complete to the doctor. Now, while there can be so many applications which I can think of related to, whether it's related to vision or it's related to NLP, like diagnostics and all, here are some of the two of the interesting ones that have come up recently. One of them is virtual health assistants. Now, several companies and several hospitals are also kind of adapting it in order to allow remote consultations to the patients without actually involving some doctor to go and talk to the patient. And also, this is one of my favorite ones, which is venting out companions. Let's say we just create an AI to which we can go to and just let out our heart, whatever we want to say, we can just go and say to them. These are some of the applications which we can look into. Now, coming to how we can use Python for combating online misinformation and harassment. Regarding this, allow me to tell you a story. So a few years back, I received a call from my mother. Now, she said that while going to sleep today, you should switch off your mobile phone. I was wondering why, but there is nothing that I know of that could actually cause this. Well, she said she received a message on WhatsApp, which basically said, according to NASA and BBC, certain cosmic rays are going to come to the Earth, because of which you should switch off your mobile phone and keep it away from your body. Well, interestingly, when I tried to look up for it, it was the same post which kept on circulating since around 4 years before then, and it just kept on circulating. Somebody just started forwarding it, and it reached my mother as well. So there are so many of the posts like this which are in fact fake, but they circulate just like a virus, and nobody have any such kind of idea about whether they have to believe it or not, because they always feel like it's WhatsApp University. Obviously, it should be right. But that's not the case. So that certainly I'll ask us something needs to be done. Now, similarly, take another case. Let's say one fine morning you wake up and you start checking your social media account, let's say X. And the moment you open it, all the posts that you are seeing are something about using some curse words about other people, using some hate speech. Do you know how would that experience be? Well, I'm telling you, it's not at all a great experience, because I have worked in annotation of hate speech, and that is horrible experience. It not only just leads to a mental disturbance, but at the same time, all this misinformation, all this hate speech, it just leads to an impalement of our own ideas about what's exactly good and what's bad. We might, at some times, if we see a hate speech, we might, if we want to support it, we might still be thinking, okay, even though it's hate speech, since it supports my idea, it's good. But that's actually impairing how we know what's exactly right, what's not. And regarding the fake news, it impels how we can actually try to understand what is true and what's not. We no longer have an understanding, should we believe it or should we not? So that's exactly why. Now, don't worry, because we have Python here for the rescue. It has immense applications into this domain. particularly, like, for example, if we look at regarding the fake news one, we have systems like fake news detection systems, fact-checking bots, and social media monitoring. These kind of systems allow you to remain safe from all these kind of mess up coming on your feed and trying to disturb you mentally. And also, on the side of hate speech detection, we again have several applications like hate speech detection, counter-speech generation, hate word masking, through which you don't have to go through all those things. That's exactly where Python comes to the picture. Now, again, taking an example, we have an example of, let's say we have two samples, which is one of them is about hate speech, another one is not so much hate speech, but rather about opposing some idea. Now, we can use some, again, using the pipeline, trying to import a classification model for toxicity detection, and then just inserting the sample that you want to classify, we are done. Basically, that's much simple it is with Python to classify whether a sentence is toxic or not. We can easily use that or deploy that into the systems like all those social media platforms and try to avoid people from getting exposed to all those kind of hate speech. Now, it would be an injustice to not to mention Hugging Face here, because it is because of the Hugging Face that we are able to actually access all these kind of models. In fact, like regarding the models, how much it offers, Hugging Face offers around 1,300 samples related to hate speech, 1,300 models, and 400 models related to fake news. And then there are also organizations like Hate Speech Synergy, which particularly works in the domain of hate speech detection and mitigation, how we can mitigate it. This is, in fact, one of the organizations which I worked with some time back. So this brings us to a very small question about us. Like, everything is fine. We have seen through many applications. We have seen through how to use it, how everything. Now the question comes is where we can start. Well, to this, I would say a very simple thing to do is just choose a domain, look out for a problem you want to solve, and think about how you can use Python to solve it. This third part is, in fact, an interesting one. It relates to one of the common challenges. Now, let me tell you about it. Let's say you create a kind of a chatbot which allows you to tell what disease you have, what problem you have on the basis of the symptoms that you describe. But the problem is that we as humans tend to believe more on what humans say or what humans do rather than a machine do. But in fact, howsoever reliable it is, even if the human is not so much experienced about it, about healthcare, but if the human says it, it becomes more and more reliable. We want to believe in it, even if it's not true. But when it comes to machine, it's not the case. So that's exactly where I would emphasize on trying to come up with methods through which AI and humans can coexist. Let's say we don't want to actually advise user about what disease they have on the basis of their symptoms, but rather allow a system to assist an actual doctor in order to assist the people. That way, we can create a more reliable and more a system where humans and AI can coexist and try to support the whole system rather than not in a deteriorating way, but rather in a constructive way. And that brings us to the end of this talk. And before even asking you questions, I would like to ask you a question. It's more of a point of wondering, can you think of ways in which we can use AI and Python in order to revolutionize the education system? How we can think of ways through which it can help the way we see education today, how it can change. I do have some answers, but probably I would love to talk to you if you want to share. Yeah. Thanks. That's it. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Adarsh. And do you have any question for the public here in the room at the moment? I'd like to ask you a question, actually. If you have any suggestion on how to choose a cause of reference to start a social impact project, because there are so many, unfortunately, issues to be solved. So in your opinion, it's better to stick to the things that we know, or maybe also the things that, as you mentioned, maybe we don't know a solution already, but we're passionate about. So what will be your process in choosing?
Okay. So, well, I would say the way how I would approach it if I had been in this scenario is that I will try to do the mix of both. I will first of all try to look for domains where my expertise lie. And then once I have shortened down to the domain where my expertise is, I will try to look for the recent problems that the research papers that are being published in that are trying to solve. Like one of the reasons why I started working on hate speech was when I connected with a professor in my college. He was working in this, and the more papers I read through, I realized that there are problems. There are more problems. The more recent paper you come up with, try to come across, the more interesting problems they try to tell you that, okay, this is the direction you can try to work in. Like, in fact, the thing was that when I started working on the project, I was initially working on hate speech, but later on, I published a paper which was on counter speech generation, which can be more empathetic. Because that was a problem which was supposed to be solved, because already there were so many people working in hate speech, but counter speech is still something that has been unsolved. So probably looking into that direction, yeah, that's how I usually proceed. Research papers, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Do you see this approach can be used also like in university? As you're a university graduate, I guess you have more in contact with university, and sometimes what I also try to do is more project, social impact project inside university. Perhaps it's something that you can see it happening, or I know the students are already quite busy, so your approach could be more addressing the student themselves, or eventually the professor that can lead to, I don't know, using more data science. Personally, I use more the data sets already on social impact, so if the students are researching and exploring data set, can spark their mind, but I'd love to hear your opinion on that.
So exactly like in, can you just
to have a more social impact project in university, if these come to be more addressing the students or the professor themselves, or if you have an experience in what direction for your experience or suggestions.
Okay, so basically about how we can, how it has been evolving over the years, you mean? The projects, how they have been evolving.
Yeah, and also how to have more social impact project inside university also in the future.
Okay. Not that I understand it completely, but I would say like I'm not really sure about the question like exactly. I would say like.
Frame it if you want.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah,
so basically, let's say a computer science university. Usually, the projects are quite simple and strictly to the education, learning the libraries, but not so many times are connected with social impact. For example, we saw with machine learning, we see the dataset means of the digits. But perhaps the dataset used and the problem to solve could probably already be in the direction of social impact.
Okay. So yeah, in that what I would say is like it depends. Again, it depends, like, because there are professors that actually work on something that is related to social impact, and then there are professors who are not. Now it depends on the student who is going to attempt on that particular problem. Like in my case, when I started, one of the problem statement that I worked through along with talking to the professor was try to participate in a shared task, which is basically in a workshop. So that could be a way to start. If you don't have a professor who is exactly working in social impact domain, then probably you can just take up any workshop which works in social impact domain and start doing a shared task probably. That would be the good start, I would say, for the students. For professor side, I would say is like, it depends on their expertise level, because still in this particular domain there is a lot of competition, at least in terms that who wants to produce more such kind of work which is more citable or more relevant to the real world. That is still something that comes with experience. So yeah, that is certainly there.
That's actually true. So I was wondering if there is any more question or even the social impact project that we want to share.
You talked about medical application. Yes. I tried in my career to do something like that, but I had a lot of problem with privacy, with data. Did you ever had such problems?
Okay, so well, most of the time when the data set that I worked with, they were usually the ones which have been like personal data has been removed from it. Like one of the problems that I worked with was related to self-reported breast cancer detection from tweets. Now that is an interesting problem, but most of the time it is, since it is curated by humans, so usually the information is removed manually. However, like given how fast it is increasing, it's still like something that problem needs to be solved, because always you can't rely on machines ever for the sake of like, it can remove the data, but how can you actually like make the government comply with that? That is always going to be an issue. At least for right now, it's not a solvable part. Most of the times I work on data which is smaller, though smaller, but still at least it's reliably good in a sense, like don't have personal data. So yeah.
Thank you. There is any more questions or sharing? Okay, where can we? Oh, thank you. Sorry.
Since no other questions, I just wanted to ask, like, it looks very interesting from a research point of view and to implement it, but how would you like go about really implementing it? Because all the news platforms or the media platforms, it's like Twitter, Facebook, they are doing their own systems.
Yes.
And that is the channel for people to hear news. So how do you make an impact in terms of making sure that people get the results of your, you know, hard work?
I would say
maybe there are some social projects that one can contribute to which are actually connected to the front end where it's delivered.
Okay, so well, I won't say that every one of those social media platforms have a way to do it, because like, let's say WhatsApp, it is end-to-end encrypted. So even if some post is getting circulated, unless and until somebody reports it, it's very hard to track it down. But I would say an easiest way to do it is, let's say I just create a platform where people can go and post the, let's say just paste the post, whichever you have received. And let's say this post is now, since we have more advanced models or like agents, AI agents, so we can, let's say, some agent which has access to the more recent news related to a particular domain. Let's say it just accesses that in the background, retrieves it, and on the ground of that, it tries to tell you whether this fact is true or not. It can be an add-on feature for now, as long as they are not open to it, because usually how it works is that research publishes something, then the companies also try to include that themselves as well, because they are also people who are concerned about all these increasing problems. From a free open source perspective, I would say like just creating something where people can just go and check for the fact or something like that. Those kind of projects will also work out. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. Can you show again where can we find you for further questions?
Sure.
Best way to connect with you?
I mean,
don't worry. You can tell us.
Yeah, you can
perfect.
Mail
okay.
me, you can email me, or as well as like, I guess that's the best way.
That's the best way, right?
That's the best way. Let's just stop it.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. So thank you very much, Adarsh, again.
Okay, thanks.